Welcome to Learning Photography with Duck. Here's your host, Duck.
Hey, how you doing, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Learn Photography with Duck. I am, as always, your host, Duck. And today is Q&A. And of course, I did not set up my screen. So let me... Okay, here we go. Before we start, I don't...
Excuse me, sir. You have a new message.
Oh, wait. This might be the confirmation I need. Oh, yes, October 26th. All right, so next Wednesday, I think that's Wednesday, right? The 26th?
You have a new message.
Oop, I did not update it. Hold on one second. Of course, I'm trying to... Is the 26th in a Wednesday? Anybody? Yes, thank you. Wednesday, October 26th. Okay, we'll do that. And now, there we go. Okay. Next Wednesday, let's see if she gave me a time. Okay. She did not give me a time, but I will probably end up posting it on Facebook page. But if you're in the area where the Connecticut Professional Photographers Association is hosting a photo walk, and everybody's welcome to attend these photo walks. They're free. We're looking to hold them throughout the state of Connecticut. It just so happens that we missed last month's due to all kinds of scheduling problems, which was supposed to be in Derby. So we decided we're going to repeat it again, hold it this month in Derby. And that's coming up next Wednesday. It'll be probably during the day. Like I said, I will confirm the time. I just don't have that information right now. But it's going to be at O'Sullivan's Park. And if you're familiar with Derby, it's literally located on the crutch between the Housatonic and the Naugatuck rivers. Back in the day, I believe it was used as training ground by firefighters. There was a burn house there and the whole 9 yards. They've redeveloped it, turned it into a beautiful park. It's part of the river walk that it goes from... I think they're starting to connect it down to Milford, but it starts here in Shelton, goes up Derby, Ansonia, Seymour, all the way up into Naugatuck, I believe. And it's just a beautiful walk. But O'Sullivan's Park in particular has a lot of wildlife. It's got geese. There's a blue heron. There's a night heron. There's turtles. There's small birds of all types. There are groundhogs galore. They have, these massive underground tunnels. The dens are just interconnected, and you'll see them pop up throughout different parts of the park. There's a couple of swans. You have to be very, very lucky to get them because they do tend to roam up and down the Housatonic River. And sometimes they'll be in our area, sometimes not. But there's always something to photograph there. It's a pretty little park. It's just a photo walk. It's a way of friends getting together. If you don't know anybody, it's a great way of meeting new people. And just having a fun time sharing an activity that we all enjoy. And that is, being behind a camera and making pics. Okay, so hopefully you will join us. Like I said, I will post it on the Facebook page when I get the time, but I think it's going to be like around 3 or 4 o'clock, simply because it's starting to get darker earlier. Okay, that being said, today's topic of conversation is in regards to Something that we haven't really talked about too much, and that is the workflow during the photo shoot. Okay. And because I know a lot of you guys are into the nature photography, landscape photography, I have some images that I took, when was it? About a month and a half ago, almost 2 months ago. Greg Horn and I went out scouting for a location for a meetup. Unfortunately, my schedule got too busy, and I was not able to schedule this, much to his chagrin, because he's been looking forward to getting out there again. But it's a private little beach. It's called Jacob's Beach in Guilford, and we had gone there when it was just starting to get into the kind of like the stormy weather. So what you'll notice here, I'll post. Let me post one of the images. Oops, that's not the image. Where is it? Here we go. All right, let me go ahead and share the screen so that way we are. Okay, here we go. Okay, and this is the image. Let me go full screen. All right, look at those clouds, huh? It's gorgeous, gorgeous. We had gone there. We were actually scouting a location that afforded photographers a variety of different things to photograph, not just one. Oftentimes what happens is we'll go to a place and there's just that like one feature and nothing else, which, if you're by yourself, and that tends to be okay. But when you're with a group of people and you want to stay there and you want to do a little bit of socializing along with taking photos, that one feature is not going to be enough. So I tend to look for something that has a variety of different things. And this particular location afforded it. It had these kayaks up on their storage racks that were just colorful. We had the beach on the other side. There's a little playground. There's a little tributary in there, and further up there's a little marina. So occasionally you'll see boats coming in and out. But the evening that we were there, we went for the specific purpose of trying to find a location that would make for a beautiful sunset. Little did we know what luck we would have because of the cloud cover that evening. It was just mind-blowing, fantastic. You couldn't plan for anything better. As a matter of fact, usually when you plan for something, it fails miserably, all right? But anyway, we spent, I'd say, maybe about an hour there before going to a couple other locations and then heading on home. But the one thing that I noticed when I was there, and it's something that, we're going to go through my workflow. We're going to go through what it takes to capture images to create a panorama. All right. I don't have the panoramas showing on purpose for a second here, but the one thing that I noticed as I was scouting around was that the way the clouds were coming in, they were coming in from the land and going out towards the water. All right. But the sunset was out in the water. All right. So what ended up happening is when you look when you look, I think this was eastward. Okay, when you look eastward, to the north were all these dark clouds coming in. And to the south or southwest was the remnants of a sunset. So we still had a lot of light. So when you're looking east, you see this divide where it's dark on one side and light on the other side. And I thought that was such a powerful image because it almost seemed like you were looking at both nighttime and daytime at the same time. And I just had to capture it. So I took a variety of images, trying to see if I could capture that. All right. So what you're looking at here behind me, this is my entire roll that I took that day. Okay. And like I said, I was only there for an hour. We were chit-chatting more than anything. I got 39 images. All right. Oh, little tangent. Remember last week when we were talking about sky replacement?
Yes.
Whenever you get a chance, snap photos of skies. All right. I took the opportunity of making sure I captured this. And if you notice, right down here is just above the horizon. So I'm able to get that perspective down to the horizon. Okay. This is going to my collection of skies. So if I ever need to replace it with a stormy sky, I got one. Okay. All right. Oh, and I got a few more. You can see them here. Okay. So anyway, just so you know that I walked the walk as well as talked the talk. All right. So we ended up on Jacob's Beach, which, like I said, is in Guilford. I don't think it's a private beach. I think it's a public beach, but it's definitely a community beach. So it's not like you're going to have a ton of people there all at the time. And it's a very small beach. Okay. But it's a pretty little beach, and it's right up the street from a marina. And of course, I think Guilford Point Marina or something like that. I don't remember. All right. But anyway, then after that, we went driving around some of the coastal roads, and we came across this pretty little scene that I'll show you later on. So within this set of 39 images, I got, two pretty nice locations. Okay. So the first shot I took, because I saw that impressive divide between night and day, is I tried to see if I could capture something interesting that highlighted that night and day look. All right. So the first 4 images, I actually took a panorama. Let me put this here. Let me turn myself off. Okay. No, these are all handheld. I did not take a tripod with me that day just because we were scouting. It's not like I knew I was going to take photos. All right. I knew I was going to take photos, but I also knew that there were more scouting photos than anything. Probably the wrong way of thinking. All right. Because I ended up walking away with some really, really great shots. And had I actually put a little bit more effort and more seriousness into it, I could have probably gotten a few more really incredible shots. But the mentality, see, this is the mentality of the time there. It was, let's just see what there is. and see if it's something that we can build a workshop around down the road. All right. So my mind really wasn't fully in the moment. It was thinking for the future. All right. Yeah. So in a way, I kind of missed some opportunity that presented itself, but I did get something. So I'm not fully saddened by what I got. Okay. So the first 4 shots I took, I'm just basically looking around with the camera. All right. There's one thing to look around and see if you can find something with your eyes, but there's something specific about actually putting camera to eye and looking through the lens and the constraints of the framing that allows you to, see the world in slightly different way. Okay. I always say explore. If you're out there to make pictures, explore it with the camera to your face. Don't just look around, look at the scenery and go, there's nothing here, because you're looking at it with your eyes. You got to look at it through the lens. Okay. And the other thing I do is I may not be fully sold even looking through the lens, but I'll take pictures anyways and then look at them in the back of the lens. The back of the camera, and see if maybe something strikes me there. All right. Let me take a pause here. One of the things that you have to understand, all right, if you're going to take photography serious, is that you need to make your photographs, not just capture them. Anybody can capture an image, but it takes a little bit of creativity and some planning, some foresight, and of course using your knowledge of the photographic process to make a photograph. And part of making it is not just being able to see the image or see the story in front of you, but to also marry it to what you understand about the processing of images as well. Okay. So right off the bat, whenever I do anything with low light or sunsets or sunrises, I automatically know that my camera is not going to capture exactly what I'm looking at. Okay. The colors, when you're looking at it through your eyes, are going to be a lot more vibrant. Okay. Plus, there's the emotional aspect of being out in that moment. All right. Here we were. The light was starting to set. It wasn't a hot day. It was, fairly cool, but it wasn't cold. You had the sounds of the beach. You had the sounds. There were a couple of seagulls over on the other side of that little jetty that were squabbling over some scraps. You can hear them, right? You can smell the salt air and all around you. And you are immersed in this environment that all of these senses are hitting you at the same time, creating a feeling. And what ends up happening is that when you get home, you're only bringing back one little section of that full range of emotions, of senses that you're experienced. You're just bringing back the visual aspect of it. Okay? Everything else that you experienced now becomes a memory that hopefully gets triggered a little bit by the images. Okay? And this is what I say when I tell people you need to edit to how you felt, because what's going to happen is somebody's going to walk in to your image not really understanding it, and they're going to put their own experiences into it. Okay. So you want to give them all the clues to that experience within the image. I know it sounds grandiose and artsy fartsy and all that, but it's the truth, you know? So I know that there's going to be extensive editing to these images once I get them home in order to match the experience, okay? And with my aesthetics, I tend to want to beautify things a little bit above and beyond of what I experienced on that day, okay? And you'll see it in a little bit. Okay, but anyway, these are the 4 images that I initially took, all right? And I'm like, I don't know, okay? But I ended up stitching them together in Lightroom, all right? And one thing I want to indicate to you is that I haven't edited all of these images, and some of them I edited just in Lightroom. There's one here that I brought into Photoshop, and we'll take a look at it. But anyway, this is the panorama that resulted from that first initial 4 images, okay? And the one thing you're going to notice is that it does not look gray like the original images do, all right? Here, let me see if, let me put all 4 up, or rather all 5 up, okay? I know this view doesn't do it justice, simply because the panorama, you know, it gets so reduced. But you'll notice that there's a lot more of that yellow sun showing through in the edited image than the one than when you look at them on the individual frames, okay? There's also a richer tonality and a little bit more detail in the sky, all right? And this is the beauty of processing your images and you know, pushing them beyond what you're initially seeing in the image, okay? Of course, I got a little bit of experience behind me, and I'm also kind of being informed by, you know, what I observed on that day, you know, and so all of that plays into effect when you're editing your images, okay? All right, so if you have never played around with it, Lightroom has a panorama stitching software, okay? And it's actually really, really decent, okay? As long as you give them suitable images to work from, all right? And what you'll notice between the each one of these frames, okay, is that I don't travel across more than 2/3 of the width of my frame, all right? And the way you can tell, oops, is it, it's not gonna let me draw on here, is it? Is it gonna let me draw? No, it's not, darn it. Okay, hold on. I cannot annotate, but anyway. This group of trees was basically my reference point for the series of images, okay? And if you'll notice, one of the things that I do a lot even when I do like event photos, I tend to take advantage of the fact that I can very easily stitch panoramas together in Lightroom. Because when I do events, I'll take a few minutes to sweep the room 3, 4, maybe 5 frames and then stitch them later so that, people can see the entirety of the room. All right. But anyway,
Is there a limit to how many you can stitch together? 4, 5, 6?
I've not met the limit. I've done, let's see, what's the most I've done? I think 5. I think 5 is the most I've ever done. But beyond 5, well, it's starting to get a little bit crazy. And what are you really accomplishing with something that long? At that point, you're almost doing a 360. All right. So, actually, let me go ahead and show you this. All right. So this is the scene that I saw, and I knew what I wanted to do is I wanted to capture a good port. Yeah, see, it's not going to let me, darn it. Not going to let me draw. Okay. A good portion of the beach, all right, because I want to establish where I am, okay? If I just did a panorama, from maybe like where the trees are, that way, I wouldn't have enough beach to establish a sense of location, okay? The other thing that kind of influenced where I start is I knew right off the bat that I wanted to do this kind of like dark on the left-hand side to light on the right-hand side. So I needed to make sure that I got enough of this dark sky area in as part of the panorama, okay? Just a little bit beyond here is in the distance, you'll see a marina, and then we start coming inland, and there are the racks with the boats. And I knew I didn't want to include any of that because it would create a distraction on the left-hand side. All right. I literally wanted people to walk in from the night, travel across into daytime. Okay. All right. So we have this clump of trees here. And I knew I wanted to go just a little bit beyond the end of this spit of land. Beyond that, it's open water, nothing to look at. The sky really wasn't very impressive on that side because we had quite a bit of cloud cover, and it was kind of just all the same. So that visually beyond this point, nothing of interest. Okay. So that kind of right off the bat informed me the range of sweep that I wanted to capture. And I'll just start in one spot. Okay. And I will click across. And what I want you to do is pay attention to where this, to the trees here. You'll notice that they are about 2/3 in here. All right. The next image, it's about 1/3 in. So the distance between the previous shot and this shot is only traveling like half the frame. So that means there's about 2/3 of an overlap. All right. Or I'm sorry, about a good 1/3 overlap, if not maybe a little bit more. Okay. And then the next image, you can see I'm right at the at those trees. All right. So it allows me to very easily stitch those first 3 with the software recognizing that clump of trees as a lock point, as a target, or as a reference to how to stitch the images together. And then, of course, the last one, I just hope and pray that there's enough information there for it to be able to stitch properly. Okay, and obviously there was. Okay, all right. So those are the 4 images. Okay, and if you notice that there's this nice little lit cloud, okay, that I just got lucky. That's all it was. It was luck. And I said, oh, I need to capture it before it disappears. All right. And that kind of became a bit of a focal point to the panorama. So it allows me to create a strong a focal point right at where we start making the transition from this dark to light. Okay. And because it's surrounded by dark, it just really makes those, you know, bright clouds really pop forward. Okay. So honestly, guys, it was just being in the right place at the right time. Okay. But what I ended up doing is I went and pushed the colors. I added a, let me see, let me, all right, so there's my sky. All right, the sky is just to bring up some of the texture. Okay. Then I went to the upper sky. All right, you can see there. And all that's doing is it's giving a gradation that darkens from, let's see if my annotation works now. Is my annotation working? Hold on. Let's try that again. Draw. Oh, there we go. Good. All right. So that one that says upper sky, all it's doing is it's darkening the top, which makes my eye travel into the image. Okay. All right. And you notice up here, we got blue up there and we got yellow down here. All right. It's pulling the eye downward. That's all it's doing. Okay. So a simple little gradient mask. Then the beach. All right. The beach, all that's doing is it's darkening it up. Okay. Again, I want to kind of emphasize that we have dark on this side and light on this side. All right. So I'm going to do everything to enforce that look. All right. So this just darkens that sand down. The next one is for the sun. All right. The sun in this particular case isn't right here. All right. Let me, oops. Control. All right. There we go. The sun isn't right here in reality. The sun is actually way over on the other side of the bay. All right. It's on the other side of the bay. But, you know, in order to kind of enhance it, all right, I put this radial filter here and I warmed up the the color temperature here in order to make these yellows pop forward. Okay. So again, I'm looking at the center of this image and I'm going blue here and, or dark there and warm here. Okay. That's kind of like my go-to mentality here. The formula, if you want to call it that. Okay. And then the last thing I did is just I added a little bit of pop. Let me Go ahead and fit that in. I added a little bit of pop just on the tops and the sunny side of those trees, just to make it look like there's light hitting it. So all that's doing is it's reinforcing that this light here is coming in and hitting that side of the trees. That's all it's doing. Okay. All right. And of course, added a little bit of vibrance, controlled, my shadows, really opened them up. All right. Let me see if I can get a before. There's the before shot. There's the after. Before. All right. See how kind of monochromatic it is. All right. There is the sense. All right. You can see that, we are dark here and we are light here, but the contrast between the two sides isn't all that pronounced. Okay. By coming in and editing to those colors and to the light and the dark, we emphasize it a little bit more. Okay. I originally, just to be transparent with you guys, originally I had this whole side a lot darker. I wanted to really emphasize that dark and light, that night and day aspect of it. But when I looked at it, it looked wrong. It looked fake. It looked forced. So I dialed it back. Okay. And that's the nice thing about, a program like this that has sliders is you can adjust to your heart's content. Okay. Any questions about how I edited this particular image?
The stitching that you mentioned, how did you, questions about the photo? I'm sorry, I'm jumping ahead. No. I was wondering, how did you stitch it?
Oh, no, that's a good question. All right. So let's go to, all right. As with anything with Adobe products, there's multiple ways of doing it. Okay. You can do it in Lightroom. You can also do it in Adobe Camera Raw. And of course, there is a way of doing it in Photoshop as well. Lightroom and Adobe Camera Raw both use the same processing engine, so they're both going to give you the same results. Okay. In Photoshop, it uses a slightly different algorithm as far as I understand. So the results tend to be in some instances, they tend to be better. Okay. I've done photos where I've gone to stitch the panoramas together and Lightroom says, oh no, I can't do this. All right. And it'll just come back with an error. Or worse still, it will do it, and then you're looking at it, and you'll see like half of one person and half of something else, and it's just really mishmash of right where the two images blend. It just looks horrible. All right. I'll talk about what to look for and what to avoid in a little bit, but let me just go over the process within Lightroom. All right. What I do, because I do this often enough, I typically remember my pano shots. But if you're not sure, a good trick is before you start your pano shot, cover your lens and take a shot. Okay. And then when you do your pano shots, cover your lens and take a shot. And what'll end up happening is you'll have your panos. Okay. So in this case, we have number 1, number 2, number 3, and number 4 for my pano. And then you'll have an image that is totally black and an image that is totally black. All right. Oh, of course, I'm hiding it. All right, you'll have an image in front of and an image behind that set that's totally black. That gives you a visual cue that, hey, this is my pano set. Okay. After a while, you get to grow out of it like I did, and, that's fine. Let me put this back up. Okay. So we grab the first one, shift click the last one in your set. Okay. And the way I do it is I'll just right click anywhere on any of those selected images on the photo, not the, actually, yeah. All right, yeah, it doesn't matter. All right, right click. And what you're going to notice is about right here, a third of the way down, you're going to see photo merge. All right. And it gives you 3 capabilities. All right, so you can do a series of multiple shots with different exposures to create an HDR, all right, or high dynamic range image. Or in this case, a series of consecutive images in a sweep for a panorama. Or if you're really adventurous, you do both. You take 3. You do your panorama, but you take 3 exposures on frame 1, 3 exposures on frame 2, 3 on 3, and 3 on 4. So you'll end up with 12 images, and you load all of those up, and it will do both HDR and a panorama all at the same time, capable right here within Lightroom. Okay. I don't do as much HDR nowadays simply because the exposure ranges that I get out of camera serves their purpose 99% of the time for me. Okay. But once you have them selected, go here, photo merge, panorama. Okay. And it's going to pull up this little dialog box, and it's going to do its thing, obviously, but it's going to give you some choices of what you can do. Okay. And these are, all right, the best way I can describe it is think of it as a projection. Okay. Think of it as a projection. Okay. Because in essence, what we are doing is we are capturing a projection of whatever scene is in front of us onto our camera, right? So if we were to take it from our camera and put it back out in nature, we would project it outward through the lens, right? Make sense? Kind of get that concept? Okay. Our lenses are spherical. Okay. If we were to take the portion, I don't have a lens in front of me. Here, I'll use my glass. Okay. If we were to take that, just that little part of a lens, and we were to continue that arc all the way around, all right, we would create a globe, a sphere. Okay. Hypothetically. Okay. So basically what we're doing is we're just looking through a little portion of that sphere. Okay. So the light is coming in through the glass from all points along this sphere, all right, towards our sensor. Okay. So now if we wanted to take a panorama, the best way to do it is from the nodal point, which is the center of your sensor. We want to pivot the camera on that point. Okay, so that means the distance from the camera to our subject, all right, if we were projecting it on the inside of a sphere, the distance from the sensor to that sphere wall would be all the same. Okay, and then when we project our image, we can see it, kind of like a planetarium. All right, that's typically how a camera works. All right, so if you think along those lines when you are capturing your image, all right, and you try to keep that center along that point and avoid doing this, all right? Avoid doing this with the camera. You're going to get better panoramas, okay? So one of the choices, as you can see here, is you can have a spherical projection of your images, okay? So what it's doing is it's saying, okay, I'm going to take these flat images, okay, and I'm going to project it onto a sphere, and I'm going to stitch them together. And then from that sphere, I'm going to trim and turn it back into a rectangle, okay? If we turn off the auto crop, you can see the edges here, okay? All right, so those are, the software is basically manipulating each individual image, all right, to line up all our borders, all right? And because there's an overlap, there's enough information to be able to distinguish the different features and say, okay, image 1 has this tree, okay? Image 2 has this tree, all right? But they're not quite at the same angle, all right? So it does all the math to line it all up. And once it lines it up, the rest of it gets manipulated. And then the third image comes along, it gets manipulated, and it's projected. And then from that projection, we're going to cut out all the usable parts, all right? And that's done with this the auto crop, okay? Auto crop, all right? So it basically maximizes all the usable space, all right? The other two projections you have available to you are the cylindrical projection, all right? So now if you can wrap your head around projecting on the inside of a sphere, what's this one do? It projects on the inside of a tube, okay? And if you've ever seen like the Mercator projection on a map, you'll notice that Greenland is really, really huge because we're getting away from our center eye level upward. And it's going to be the same thing here. Anything that gets too high is going to start stretching upward and downward a little bit. All right. Let me just go ahead and click on that. It's going to do its thing. Okay. And it's not very obvious in this one simply because there's really no detail. There are no features that are getting stretched out to the point where they're really, really noticeable, okay? Where you do notice it is when you do scenes where there's people in it, okay? Or buildings and things like that, okay? So what I tend to do is the majority of the panoramas that I make are usually with the first two of these projections, either spherical or cylindrical, okay? And I'll bounce between the two depending on what it is I'm shooting and depending on, you know, which one gives me the effect that I want, okay? The one that I use the least is a perspective, okay? And what that's doing is saying, okay, we're taking a range from here to here, all right? And we know that in reality, the closest point is from here straight forward. We're going to be further away from here to that end of the image and from here to that end of the image. Make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay. So what it does is it, instead of projecting it on what would be curved to our eyes, it's saying, all right, we're going to take these areas here and we're going to push them flat. And it's literally like putting it on a billboard and saying, All right. Perspective wise, the left and the right are going to appear in the image further away because in reality, they are further away. All right. Some images, it really, while it's trying to keep the math proper, what it ends up happening is it distorts any subjects that are on the extreme edges. It distorts them in really, really, really funky ways. All right, because the truth is that it is a spherical projection, but we're forcing it onto a more flat perspective projection. All right. Are there uses? Obviously, there has to be. Otherwise, they probably won't have put it into the program. I'm sure some people use it. Me personally, I don't like that look, so I don't tend to use it. Okay. And of course, you have your boundary warp, which will kind of pull in or push out those edges. Okay. Again, you're not going to notice a lot of difference simply because the majority of this particular image of what we need to look at lies right at our eye level. All right. So because we have very little detail below and above that, we're not noticing too much of a distortion. Okay. All right. Fill edges. All right. If we turn the auto crop off, you'll see that we have all these white spaces created by the manipulation of the individual frames. If you click on fill edges, all it's going to do is it's going to use AI, sample the areas, and just fill it in. Okay. So it's a nice way of being able to expand your working area, but be aware that sometimes it gets really, really nutty. And if the image you are trying to stitch, if the panorama you stitch together has a lot of detail that changes from, across that edge, if there's not enough of it to sample, it's going to give you really, really weird effects. I've had it where I've done the interior of a event hall, and they have the ceiling tiles, and you think, oh, it'll sample all the ceiling tiles. Well, no, it sampled them, but it just didn't arrange them properly. So you get struts coming out of weird places. You get texture that's got sampled from something that's closer to you being used in an area that's supposed to be further away. It just creates havoc. So sometimes it works, sometimes it fails miserably. In this particular case, it's not too bad. I can see a little bit of duplication down in this area. Okay. But the nature of the image, I don't think most people will notice that in a casual observation. All right. See those? Got 1, 2, 3. All right. Repetition of pattern. All right. So. All right. And all right. So we'll take that off. We'll put this back on. Auto settings. Auto settings I usually keep on because what it'll do is it'll analyze all the images, all right, figure out, because sometimes you may be a little darker on this one, a little brighter on that one. The exposure may not be dead on between each. What it'll do is it'll compensate so that when it blends the two together, you don't get a seam where it looks like the exposure on this side is a third off from the exposure on along this seam. Okay, so it balances it out, and it applies a certain amount of editing to the image. Okay, all of these can be overridden, obviously. So don't worry about, if the auto settings gives you something that you look at and go, ooh, that's horrible. You're more than welcome to fix it and correct it. All right. And the last one that I like to check is this one that says create stack. And all that does is it just groups them together. Okay. It just makes organizing your file, your folder a little bit easier, because typically what happens is once I make my panorama, I don't care about those 4 images that made it. So if I can hide it into a stack, it's out of sight, out of mind. I don't need to worry about it. Okay. Any questions on this function? Pretty straightforward. Really, there's not much to it, as you can see. And then when you're ready, just click on merge and it will give you the merged image. Okay. So in this case, oops. Come on, give me the before.
Like, I do have one question.
Yeah.
When you were working with your photo, did you work on each photo individually, or once did you stitch them together?
Oh, good question. Typically, if you have the auto tone, it's gonna override a lot of the things that you did to it. So I usually stitch it first and then edit it, because otherwise you're doing work that it's not going to keep anyway. All right. So for example, if you noticed, actually, let's see. Okay. If you noticed, let's see. Hold on, let me see if I can zoom in here. Oh, it's not gonna let me? What the heck? Oh, because, all right, hold on. Let me reset this. Okay, enter. Now we can, all right. All right. If we look at the edge here, you'll notice that it curves. Okay. Oops. Let me go here. All right. You can really see it here. Curves, right? All right. So if I were to come in and say, okay, I'm going to use my crop tool to kind of like straighten out my horizon, all right, on all my images. All right, and then I say, okay, let's take all these that I just spent a few seconds straightening it out, load it into the panorama program. The panorama is going to say, oh, that's cute, you attempted it. I'm just going to ignore it and do my own thing anyway, So for me, it doesn't make any sense to put any kind of work that it's going to be overridden or completely ignored by the software. So for that reason, I typically will edit after. Okay. Even like I said, sometimes when you're taking successive images, what you'll notice is, especially outdoor ones, I've had it where as I am taking them, all right, the sun will go behind a cloud.
Yes.
Yeah, you know this one. So what ends up happening is you have exposure, looking really nice, and then the third one, oh my God, this one looks darker than these two. But they were taking it at the same time, and they're part of this collection in the panorama. All right. So you say, okay, well, that's easy to fix. I'll just, correct the exposure on this one. All right. And well, you'll find out that the software pretty much handles this for you. Okay. The good thing is if you find that it missed something, you can always go back and regenerate the panorama. You just run it over again. All right. Make sense? All right. So there's my constraint to crop. Let me bring this back to here. Because I had it right about there. Good. Okay. All right. Moving on. All right. So exploring the beach, I come across this scene here. All right. Again, I'm still exploring with the camera. I'm looking through the camera, seeing what captures my interest. All right. And I love all the colors of these boats that are just popping out all over the place, with this dark, gloomy cloud behind it, because typically we think, kayaks, warm weather, beautiful skies, calm water to be out on. It's a clear juxtaposition when you're looking at these kayaks with a clearly stormy sky above it. It gives you a completely different storyline, okay? The only thing that I kind of did not like was that there was this access strip. It's not really a road. It was like a rubber mat that had these stripes on it that went up the center between two rows of racks. And to me, it kind of detracted a little bit from it. But there are times where you say, well, life's giving me lemons. Let's make lemonade. Okay. So, of course, what did I do? I decided, well, I'm just going to go ahead and center myself. Okay, here. Which one is this? Oh, this is the one I edited. Okay, here. This is edited in Lightroom. Okay. Let me go to the before. All right, that's what it looked like before. So I centered myself pretty much on that strip in order to get the sky and the boats and the colors. And of course, the boats are a little bit closer on the left side than they are on the right side. So it's not that perfect symmetry, but you know what? It was close enough. Okay. Mooded it up, if that's a word. Okay. So I increased the terror of the sky. I increased that little spot of gold peeking through the cloud cover. Okay. I added a little bit of warmth to the foreground. All right. So like the previous shot, okay, where I literally cut it down to center and I had cool on this side and warm on this side, right? This particular image is a little bit different, okay? I split it this way and I went cool up here and warm down here, okay? And hopefully you can see that that effect where even though we're getting into that dusk sunset look, all right, I'm putting a lot of warm colors in the bottom section, kind of to make it look like it's the last vestiges of daylight trying to hold on, before giving over to the cloudy skies. Okay. All right. So again, I used local adjustments by creating masks. All right. The first thing I did was I selected my sky to bring out the drama, adding texture. Right. Then this particular side here, all right, you can see, let me turn that off. All right. What we're doing is we're looking northward, okay? So the sun's already set on that side. And so we're getting the last glimmers of sunlight right in this area here, okay? Because the sun is over here. Light is coming this way, all right? So we have dark here and light here, okay? But I want it to be a little bit more symmetrical. So this particular bit of masking, all it does is it darkens that side, balances it out a little bit more, okay? Hopefully you can follow that, all right? Next one is just to give a little bit of light onto the boats. Okay. I did not want to lose them because they are, in this particular case, they are the subject. Okay. Now, let's talk a little bit about that. Okay. We have this magnificent sky. All right. When I was there at the moment, that sky grabbed all my attention. All right. And it's very easy to be, within that moment and say, there is my subject, the sky. All right. And if that were the case, if we were just to take a photo of the sky, all right, what would we get? We would get this, all right? Is that impressive? Well, if you like clouds, maybe it is, but overall, nothing very impressive about it. After a while, you go, okay, I'm bored, okay? There's nothing there to hold your attention because even though the sky is magnificent, it does not make a suitable subject, okay? So in this particular case, I knew the sky has all this drama, but I also understand that by itself is not my subject, okay? My subject are the boats to the left and the right, okay? So of course, I want to bring a little bit of attention to them, all right? So I make them pop forward a little bit just by adding a little bit of light, and I just did that with two circular gradients. Okay. All right. The next step is I darkened my foreground a little bit just for the express purpose of bringing the eye upward. I'm sure you guys would rather look at the photos that I take than me, right? All right, let's go. There we go. Full screen. Okay. So in this particular case, I went back to my initial idea of that day to night kind of scene. All right. Because if you noticed, I started off with that concept, took a couple of shots. And then when I turned to the north and saw all those clouds, I then explored, capturing those clouds with the kayaks. All right. Once I was happy with that image, I turned my attention back to that day to night. All right. So we have, all these storm clouds coming in from the north. And then of course we have all this light from the setting sun that is influencing the south part. So looking dead east, we get this nice division of the storm clouds in the north and the sunset clouds in the south. Okay. And in this case, I made a choice about my colors as I was developing it, because initially I wanted to show a little bit more of the sunset colors on the right hand side, but if you notice, there are really no sunset colors there, right? And the reason I did that is twofold. One, the colors of the boats were my main subject, all right? And I did not want anything to kind of pull away from it, all right? So, and the other thing is that I wanted to create more of a daytime look rather than a sunset look. All right. So by staying away from that, whatchamacallit, those yellows and oranges, okay, it gave this more of that, daytime look, while this was more of that nighttime look. Okay. And what I did is I took all this green and I just kind of brightened it up. All right. So what's it look like before? Let's see. Let's go into the develop module. Before, okay. So you can see that the clouds aren't as strong looking in this direction as they are, looking into, the north side. Okay, we're looking east here. Okay, and my exposure was a little bit more on the overexposed side, because what I wanted to do is I wanted to make sure that I caught enough detail in the shadow areas of the rocks and in and amongst the boats. Okay, I did not want to lose those. In one respect, I really did not know, I did not have a clear full image of, yeah, see, my camera is just, all right, where is my camera? Okay, camera, deactivate, activate, there we go. Okay, all right, here we go. Presenter off. Hey, we got camera back. All right. I did not have a clear picture of how I wanted to edit this. Okay. So for that respect, I gave myself a little bit of leeway with capturing the shadows. Okay. Fortunately, it was, we're getting close to, almost full sunset, where the exposure balance between darks and lights are starting to really balance out here, where I can push the shadows to be a little bit more open without blowing out my highlights. Okay, so I purposely overexposed a little bit in order to be able to push my exposure in post-processing. Okay, and as you can see, what ended up happening is I really pushed the dark side to the dark while maintaining the light side pretty much at the exposure that I captured it at. Okay, and the only thing that I did is I brightened up the greens, all right, because you can see how muted these are here, here, and here, all right, in comparison to this, which, just brightens them up a little bit. it it counterbalances all the color we have here. So it doesn't make sense to have this side all color and then this side looking kind of flat and monotone and dull. Make sense? Okay. All right. So punching up the colors here it just kind of balances that out a little bit without having, you know, a yellow of the sun here, just pulling the eye that way. Okay. Because again, I want people to be looking at the subject, okay? And here's where understanding the rules and knowing when to break the rules comes into effect, all right? You've heard me say this before. There's no such thing as breaking the rules, because what you're doing is you're substituting one rule for another, okay? Now, the rule that most people think is our eye is going to go to the brightest part of the image, okay? And if we look at this, well, it seems that our brightest part is all the way on the right-hand side, okay? So our eye would come in over here, travel across, and then keep going, right? Because there's really nothing here to prevent the eye from traveling outward, okay? But what we're playing with here is more with colors and textures, all right? Texture. So if we divide this down the center, all right, you'll see that we have a lot of texture in the sky. We definitely got texture in the tree. We have all this texture with the boats, and we have all this texture with the sand. Okay? In comparison, not much texture here. Definitely not much texture here. All right? Now, let me qualify what I mean by this, because there is texture in the sky and there is texture in the water. All right? But the texture is a lot softer in the sky and it's a lot finer in the water, all right? And we do have texture in the sand here, but if we look at the texture, all right, if we compare the textures here and here, you can see that this is very coarse and this is very fine, all right? So we have that, you know, lots of texture, all right, coarse, all right, and then we have smooth, less texture here, right? Okay. So what ends up happening is that although the light pulls us across, what brings us back is the texture and the color of the left-hand side of the image. All right, make sense? So we're purposely breaking one rule and we're using other rules to replace it with. So while I'm not so worried about the brightness pulling our eyes away, I say in order to bring it back, I have to make sure I work something else into the image, all right? And in this case, I make the colors pop, all right, to bring interest, to create interest on the left-hand side to keep the people there, all right? And I make sure that the colors on the right-hand side are not so dull that people, you know, get tired with the image, but not enough that it pulls people completely to that side and off the screen. All right. Hope that made sense. Hopefully that kind of reinforces a little bit of the lessons that we've had in the past and something for you to think about when you are out in the field. Okay. All right. And this is what our images look like beforehand. So you can see my exposures are very controlled, where they're opening up for the shadows. I'm exposing for the shadows, okay? Simply because I understood that my light values were well in control due to the time of day. All right. Of course, had to capture my my sky just for future purposes. All right. And then we come to this one. All right. This is now all right, here, hold on a second. This is literally how it looks like. When we're looking out towards the sound, the tree is over to my left. All right. That's where the sun's already set. And to the right is this little spit of land. All right. Because we're in this kind of like little natural cove. Okay. With this house. And as you can see, the sun is way off to the right-hand side, way in the distance, already down at or slightly below horizon level. Okay. All right. So let's look at this one. Okay. This is another panorama. Okay. Let me open up the pano. This is just two images. This one and this one. Okay. And you're going to notice that it's literally a silhouette. Okay. This one, I will be honest, I didn't think it would come out. I didn't know what I was going to do with it. I took it because, you know, for the hell of it, I took it, I looked at it, and I immediately dismissed it. I said, there's nothing there. There's nothing there. All right. There's really nothing of interest to keep our eye there. Was I wrong? Look at that. Okay. Brought it in, created a panorama from it, two images. And then I said, all right, well, let me play with the sky. Let me play with the sky and see what there is. And as you can see, I pulled a lot of detail. All right, let me get these in there. Okay. All right. There's a lot of detail in that sky that on first look doesn't look like it's there. Okay. And this is where experimenting and keeping your mind open to ideas and kind of experimenting outside of the box can yield some very interesting results. Okay. Now, you've all heard me say, shoot raw. This is why. All right. Look at that texture I was able to pull out of that sky. I wouldn't have been able to do it if I had shot in JPEG. Not at all. Okay. Because the exposures information was there for me to really, really push the exposure down on my highlights. Okay. We got all this beautiful detail. Of course, you know, I enhanced the colors. Okay. The other thing you'll notice is that my original image does not have lit windows. This was painted in, and believe it or not, that was done in Lightroom. Okay. With a local adjustment. Okay. All right. So let's go to local adjustments. Okay. The first thing I did, okay, is I really darkened that down. Okay. Now, the reason I darkened this particular corner of the sky is, again, let's take a look at it and analyze it. All right, we have that division. Okay. Nothing, absolutely nothing is going on here. So all of our attention is shifted here. Okay. But if we divide it this way, oh, that wasn't very straight, was it? If we divide it this way, there's really nothing up here. All the information is literally in this section right here, right? Okay. Now, I could have cropped it in to just that. Okay. But now it becomes a little bit overwhelming and underwhelming at the same time. All right. I'm filling up the entire area with a silhouette and not much else. Okay. So what happens is the, excuse me, the balance is off. All right. The balance is off where the silhouette now becomes the predominant aspect of this particular image, right? Which obviously, control. Well, let me back up. Undo crop. Yes. Okay. Where in this case, all right, even though 3/4 of the image is empty sky, it balances that heavy blackness quite nicely. All right. And what makes this work a little bit better is that I'm able to pull all that texture out of the sky. All right. And I'm able to add a little bit of color to that sky. All right. So this is what it looked like before. Okay. As you can see, I kind of exposed for the brights in this particular case. Okay. Because the exposure range wasn't as severe as, you know, like a daytime scene, I'm able to capture a little bit of shadow detail. All right. Now, a lot of you may say, oh, what do you mean shadow detail? I don't see any shadow detail there. But if we look at it, okay, there is. You can see the windows here. You can actually, I don't know if you guys can see it. Can you see the slats of the siding? Are you able to see that?
Yes.
Okay. So I was able to retain enough shadow detail that I knew I can manipulate it to a certain extent. All right. But what appealed to me with this particular scene was the fact that it was being silhouetted against the sunset. Okay. Now, to my naked eye, there wasn't a lot of color there, but there was some. And it was definitely a lot further to the right of this particular scene than you know, than what I could capture, right? Because if we were to continue, let's see if I can do this. Oops. Let me. No, I need to go down. Control. All right. If we were to continue this, all right, it literally went like this. All right, where there was another house here, there was a bench here, and then right here is the parking lot to the beach. So had I framed this a little bit more, I would have gotten all that junk. All right, even though the sunset was pretty much right about here from that perspective. Okay, so it was a choice based on, you know, exclusion, I guess is what you can call it. All right, I wanted to exclude all that. Oops, I wanted to exclude all that garbage that was here. Okay. So because this house was at the end of that piece of land with that solitary tree in front of it, it kind of created a strong silhouette on its own. All right, you can see it there. All right, so that is what kind of initially caught my attention. All right, but when I saw it, I immediately discarded it. I said, oh my God, that is terrible. Nothing appealing about that image, and literally I forgot about it until I opened it up later. Okay, stitched it together, and then I started working with local adjustments. Okay, local adjustments. Okay, so the first one darkens that. Oh, and that's where because I went off on a tangent. Okay. All right, because we have all this dark here, I wanted to add some dark here. All right, so these two, oops, where's my pen? These two kind of counterbalance each other. All right, okay, so added that little bit of darkness up in the corner. All right, the lower sky, all right, that's just adding in some color. All right. So that's what it looks like before, kind of bland, boring. Does not look like a sunset simply because the sun is way over, much, much further to my right. It's already gone down in this area. So we're not getting those nice colors. The colors were much, much further over. Okay. So I just artificially brought the colors back. Okay. My mid sky, I just added contrast to it. All right. I really didn't punch the colors too much that were there with that particular adjustment. And then the last one is my window lights. My window lights. Okay. And all I did is I used the brush. I brushed in the little rectangles, and then I overexposed the area, added a little bit of yellow to it, and that's my, my color temperature. Yeah, I warmed it all the way up. You can see right here, color temperature pushed all the way to the warm colors. And that gave me a fairly natural looking window light. Okay. Now, mind you, without that window light, there's nothing really there to kind of hold your attention. All right. You look at it, you say, pretty sky. Okay. Next photo. But having that little bit of window light lets us know, hey, there are people there. Okay. So it personalizes it a little bit. Is it a super strong image? Not by any shape of the word. Okay. But I wanted to bring this up simply because it really illustrates what can be done with a little bit of creativity, with a little bit of thinking outside the box, okay? And with an understanding of what the software can actually do for you, all right? Any questions on this one? Because I know this one is kind of out of left field. Anybody?
You made it quite clear. I thought. I mean, I can actually use it. You know,
Good. That's what I want. I want to give you tools that you can use. All right. All right. From there, it was experimenting. Oh, we spotted a rainbow. I've never photographed a rainbow before. All right. Let's see. This is what it looks like. All right. I've never captured a rainbow in camera. Every time I've tried, I've always failed. All right, so I figure I'll give it another try. Not very impressive, is it? Okay, moving on. Came back to the house. Went over to the other side. exploring with the camera, took another shot of my sky just for posterity, and then we were out of there. All right. I caught everything that I needed. Nothing else was capturing my attention. And the sun was really, 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 really low. We're starting to get into the blue hour. All right. So we got into the car, drove literally to the other side of this. Okay. So there's a little cove here. And then on the other side of this, there's another larger cove. We went to the far side of that cove and we came upon this little road that opened up into this scene. All right. It almost looks like a little fishing village, but it's literally a residential village, residential area. The road we were on actually stopped and became a private road over a little footbridge, and we couldn't get much further. So I took a series of images. All right. And of course, I took a panorama. Okay. And at this point, it wasn't so much about or creating that night to day look at this point. Okay, what's going on here? Oh, there we go. At this point, it was just trying to see if I can capture any vestiges of that sunset, right? Because like I said, the sun had already gone down. It was way over the horizon. We were well into our blue hour, all right? And don't discredit that blue hour, okay? Because you can still make pretty interesting images. Okay. All right. Let's bring that up. Oh, we even had a little visitor that was just kind of hanging out, enjoying getting his photo taken. All right. Which is this, this little guy right here. All right. So before and after, that's the before. Okay, so you can see at this time, the exposure contrast is very, very low. Okay, the light's already gone down. We're getting this wash of residual ambient light that's just kind of washing over everything. And because of the cloud cover, it kind of smoothed out the light a little bit. That's why those shadows are able to be opened up just because of that nice cloud cover. Okay. And obviously a little bit of pushing the contrast, bringing up the brights to create that contrast. So if you look at it, my shadow areas, okay. And what I mean by shadow areas, I want you to look at like all the deep, deep, deep areas of shadow. Okay, up in here, right? There's not a lot of the deep, deep areas, all right? But those shadow areas stay the same. All right, I really did not do much with those shadow areas. I did push the exposure and I did push the brights and the whites a little bit more in order to bring the light, the existing light. I brought the exposure of that up a little bit more in order to give me that contrast push in order to make this image a little bit more interesting. Okay. All right. Oh. Okay, any questions on this one? All right, what did I do? Oh, yeah, so the only thing that I did is I popped a little bit of color way in the distance because you can see the sun had already set. Not much color in the sky, okay? Just that little punch of color right in the center gives us, a little bit of visual interest, all right? Any questions on that part? All right. Uh,
I do have a little question.
sure.
Is that you have a building? What will happen if you had to straighten the building? Would that affect the stitching?
I would fix it after the stitching. I would stitch it first and then use my perspective tools to fix it in post.
Very good.
You know, after the panorama.
Mhm.
All right.
Say, Doug.
Yeah.
Have you ever found out why my Lightroom changes when I highlight it? That when I, what do you call it?
I have not. I have not been able to replicate it.
Okay.
And I've the few times that I went looking for it online, I have not heard of anybody encountering that problem.
Okay.
So I think you caught a glitch that's unique to you.
Thanks a lot.
Sorry. Wish I could give you a better answer than that. All right.
Hey,
Okay.
hey, Doug.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was on your call or online presentation. I went to Milford Photo or what?
Okay.
Did you say there is a website that lists what's the sweet spot for each kind of lens? Was it you who said that or somebody else?
No, I did not say that. I'm sure there is. DP Review is a site. Oh no, DxO. DxO is.
DxO?
I think it's DxO.
Or maybe I did see it. Or maybe I did
yeah.
see it at DP Review.
Or it may have been DP Review, but there is one company, I guess, group. They post a lot on YouTube, where they go and they have a massive website where they analyze and test literally every lens and every camera, and gives you the full spectrum analysis of their testing. And anything and everything you want to know about a lens, you can find there. From chromatic aberration to barrel distortion to you name it. You know?
If there's a nominal fee for that, I'm willing to pay for it. I mean, a good fee.
Yeah, I don't know if they charge for their findings. I know they post a lot on, you know, in charts and give reviews. However,
This is yesterday. There was one particular picture I took at f/16,
mhm,
and I just didn't like the way it came out. You know, because I felt I needed f-stop 15 of 16 for
okay,
this particular shot for what I wanted. And I know they've said sweet spots between 8 and 11. And what's his name? Brian. Who's that guru guy who writes the books? You follow him, Brian.
Brian Peterson.
Brian Peterson.
Yeah.
He gave a lecture one time. He says, "Yeah, there are all those rules, but I never had a problem with f/16, f/22, or whatever."
Right.
I was just a little. I was just a little. Excuse me for sounding tired. I was just a little annoyed that I did what I thought was right for f/16, and it just turned out wrong.
Well, there may be other factors involved, rather, other than just setting out an f/16. Okay. Even though f/16 is going to give you a deeper depth of focus, it's still very dependent on where your focal plane sits. All right. So if your focal plane is too far forward of your subject or too far back from your subject, it can really affect it. It also depends on the camera to subject, subject to background distances. Okay, so if you are closer to the subject than the subject is to the background, even at f16, you're going to have some background blur.
Okay, I had foreground blur in this particular
Okay.
case.
All right. Yeah. Depending on how close that foreground is, okay. Yeah, you'll notice it, because the focus degradation of what goes from sharp to blurry tends to be more noticeable towards the camera than away from the camera.
This is what it was. It
Yeah.
was. I'm not going to show you the picture now, but it was Macedonia State Park,
Mhm.
and there was a bridge that goes into the woods, and next, so you have, these three things are in different planes: the sign that says what the trail is,
Right.
the bridge, and the background.
Right.
Bridge came out nice. I was happy with the bridge. I was happy with the background because I don't mind the background being a little fuzzy, because it gives you a little sense of perspective that you know,
Right.
there's a lot there. The sign did not come out that well. So the sign was quite a bit of a distance in front of the bridge. It wasn't
Yeah,
right next to the bridge. So that could have been the problem.
Yeah. All right. So in this case, you got to look distance of you to the sign, distance of sign to the bridge. All right. And and then the distance of you to the bridge. Okay. So if you focus on the bridge, the sign will probably be out of focus.
Okay.
All right. If you focus on the sign, the bridge may end up being a little soft. Okay. But if you look at the distance of the camera to the bridge,
Yeah.
divide that by just a little bit below half, all right, and focus at some point there, you may get the ability to split focus and have both the sign and the bridge in relatively good focus.
So are you saying if the bridge is, for the sake of argument, 4 feet away from me, set the focus at 2 feet away from me?
Correct.
Okay.
All right. And then what happens is, all right, so you have your focal plane, all right? And then from the focal plane to the back, it's going to fade off. And then from the focal plane to the front, which is a shorter distance because of the camera placement, is going to fade off. Okay? So if you know that there's nothing here other than background, all right, and you focus on that bridge, okay, you're splitting your focus in front of and behind the bridge.
Okay.
Okay? And because there's nothing significant behind the bridge, this is all wasted focus.
Okay.
All right? So now, if we shift the focus so that when we go towards the camera and towards the back, we have that gap of relatively good focus. All right? The bridge will be in there because it's right here, and the sign will be in there because it's right here.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
So what you're doing is you're splitting. Okay?
Okay. The one thing I learned today, of course, the day after,
Yeah.
I learned this in the photography group at Prospect Senior Center because the guy ran 2 videos on autumn, taking pictures of autumn scenery, and he said, do focus stacking. And it's like, oh, I could have used that.
Yeah. That's another thing you could do. All right. But focus stacking in landscapes is usually if you want to preserve some detail in the foreground. You
Okay.
know, because what you got to realize is your scene extends from camera or the first thing that's visible from the camera, okay, which is usually maybe a little patch of grass in front,
Yeah.
okay, all the way to infinity.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, obviously, the Earth drops off, it curves off before we get to infinity. So to our natural eyes, what we're seeing maybe that mountainscape in the background. All right. So we tend to think of that as being the extent of our scene. Although the camera is able to see beyond that and capture beyond that, and it's taking into consideration beyond that, all right, to infinity. Okay. All right. So now, let's say we have a span of 50 miles, okay, before we hit that hill or mountain or whatever it is that creates our background, okay. But the majority of the items of interest that we tend to put in most normal landscapes are only within a few hundred feet or a few hundred meters from our position. Okay? So we're already focusing to the front of our focal plane.
Okay.
Okay? And we're leaving all that in the background to just kind of fall off. Okay. So if we take the furthest item that is our subject, all right, and let's say it's at 500 yards, okay, and we place the focal plane on that, okay, usually this works out because that's where we want to pull attention to. And normally we want any elements in the foreground to become softer so as not to distract from our subject. Typically, right? However, there are times when we do want to tell a broader story and we want some of the items in front to be in sharp focus or relative sharp focus. All right. So that means we have to purposely bring our focal point forward, even if there's nothing there to focus on. All right. We just bring our focal plane forward in order to have that span that we call, relatively sharp focus from our focal plane, to come in to within that 500 meter mark. Not starting at that 500 meter mark, all right? We bring it in. So I don't know if I explained that concept properly.
I get the idea. I
Okay.
get the idea.
All right.
The other thing I learned, if I'm taking pictures of groups of people, I think I should use F11. I used F5 points. I usually use.
Well, it depends on how deep the group is.
The group wasn't that deep. That's the problem.
Yeah.
It was about maybe 8 people.
Okay.
They were very close together, and I had
How many rows, roughly? Like 2-3 rows?
Not even 2 rows.
2 rows. Okay.
2 rows of people.
Yeah. F8.
So
F8 could have done it.
F8 maybe
All right.
as a default, as a benchmark, as a starting
Yeah.
point.
Yeah.
Make it F8 instead of F5.6.
Oh, yeah.
Normally when I
Yeah.
normally when I take-
5.6. All right. So we can throw around these numbers, but we have to keep in mind that it's also going to be relative to your position to the group. If you are 3 feet from the group,
Yes.
F8's not going to work. All right.
Why?
You may need to go to F11 or F16.
Oh, okay, yeah. I was
All right.
in this particular
If you're
case,
10 feet away from the group,
if I'm 10, did you say if I'm 10 feet?
10
away?
feet, yeah,
Yeah.
or 12 feet or 15 feet, all right, then you can get away with like 5.6
Oh, okay.
because
'Cause I was
it's
like-
relative.
I was 3 feet. Normally I'm usually 10 feet away from people. This
Yeah.
particular case, I was 3 feet away,
Yeah.
and it was sort of blurry. It's like, why. So okay, so
Okay.
that was the problem.
Here's another way of looking at it. All right, you have a group of people, 2 rows.
Mhm.
You're 10 feet away from them. You
Yes.
put your camera on f11. You take a photo. They're all nice and sharp.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and you go perfect. Now you don't move. All you do is you turn around. Right behind you is a bee on a flower.
Mm-hmm.
And you put your lens this far away from the bee.
Yes.
You're still at f11. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
You may not get the entire bee.
Okay.
All right? Part of the bee will be out of focus. And you're definitely not going to get the entire flower in focus.
Okay.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Because camera distance to subject matters with your depth of field or depth of focus. All right?
Okay.
Because now when you're photographing the flower, here's your lens, here's your focal plane. It's only a few inches away. So that it's going to go from sharp to blurry within a very short span of time.
Oh,
right?
okay.
And it's going to go sharp to blurry in a very short span of distance here. Okay? Now we take that same plane and we take our lens from here to 10 feet. Okay? We still have that sharpness here, but instead of going to blur at 4 inches, right, it's going to go to blur at 10 feet.
Okay.
All right. So everything in like the 2-foot area of this focal plane is going to be in relatively sharp focus.
Okay.
Okay. Now, if we take it and we have that group of people and we focus on the guy all the way in the back row. Okay. We're going to get that sharp, and all that empty air behind that person, it's going to be sharp, 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 but there's nothing there to photograph, just empty air. So you're wasting all that sharpness. Okay. And then to the front of the group, it may just be 2 feet, 3 feet. All of a sudden, that lady in the front row, she's going to be soft. Okay. Same thing if we take that focal plane and we put it on the lady in the front row. The guy in the back is going to be a little soft. All right. So what we got to do is we got to take that focal plane and put it in the middle of the group. All right. So we get everybody in relative sharp focus. All right. So take that concept, put it to, you know, the barn and the sign and the river and everything. Okay. And you'll be able to work it out a little bit better. Okay.
Thank you.
It's where you put the focal plane. All right. Okay. Anyway, that's pretty much it. We definitely ran over time. Maureen, you've been kind of quiet and taking this all in. Since you're our guest here for the first time, what did you think? Do you have any questions?
There we go. I really enjoyed it. I'm relative new to photography. The beginning of this year, I treated myself and I bought a Nikon Z6 II.
Nice. Okay.
And so I've been slowly learning.
Yeah. It's a process. Stick to it. Yeah. So a lot of usually what I discuss here may go over your head, but stick to it. Eventually it starts making sense and the pieces come together.
Yes.
Yes.
Maureen, what town do you live in, Maureen? Where do you live?
I live in Massachusetts.
You may want to join a camera club that caters to people to all ranges. There's North Haven Camera Club. A lot of the stuff in Connecticut, a lot of the stuff is online because people don't want to deal with COVID. If you're in the Boston area, Lynn, there's a camera club in Lynn that is very, very active.
Yeah, Boston has awesome few photo groups in that area.
Mhm.
Right, right. I have found a few groups online. I did join a woman's photography group who went on a nature walk at a pond about a month or so ago. And I've started going out on my own.
Yeah.
But I'll check out some of the other, I'm on now I'm on several Facebook groups.
Yeah.
But I'm finding it's more helpful when I'm listening to a lecture like tonight. I haven't used Lightroom. I recently got Adobe Photoshop, and I'm just starting to learn how to use that.
Okay, I will give you a little tip.
Okay.
Adobe Photoshop, when you initially open up a RAW file, do you know what I
Yeah.
mean by RAW versus
I do.
JPEG? Okay. When you
Yeah.
initially open up a RAW file, it's going to open it up in a program called Adobe Camera Raw.
Yes.
Adobe Camera Raw and Lightroom, exact same things as far as the editing goes.
Oh.
So everything that you saw me do here in
Uh-huh.
Lightroom, you can
Yeah.
do in Adobe Camera Raw.
Okay.
The only difference is that Lightroom is a content manager. So I can, as you can see, I have my full collection of images from the photo shoot. Whereas Adobe Camera Raw, you can do multiples, but it's typically one at a time.
Yes, I have found that
Yeah.
out.
I've taken lessons that Duck has done in Lightroom from the first Monday of the month, and I've used them in Photoshop
Yeah.
in Adobe Camera Raw. Same thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And hopefully you saw some of these images and you realized, the potential.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did. It was amazing. I actually on Saturday went into the city of Lowell, which is nearby. I don't know if you're familiar, but I took a bunch of photos of some mills and some architectural
Mhm.
thing. I I was playing around and I
Yeah.
got some interesting photos. I got some that were overexposed and some that were underexposed. And now I feel a little more hopeful about being able to fix some of that
Mhm.
because I am shooting in both RAW and JPEG.
Well,
You don't need to shoot in both. Get rid of the JPEG because every image that you edit is going to spit out as a JPEG.
Okay.
You'll never use those JPEGs that you shot.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
All right.
they're worthless for editing.
Okay. Okay.
the one advantage of where you live, and it's somewhat like this here, is you really don't have to go far to take pictures. I
Yeah.
went to school in Boston. I know the Lowell area. I know the North Shore. I know the South Shore. I know Boston. You're in a terrific area to take a lot of different kind of pictures.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm aware of that. I also, just as an aside, I have a second home in Vermont.
Ooh, there you go.
It's an area that has very little light pollution.
Ooh.
And I was there a couple of weeks ago when the moon was very small,
hmm
and my boyfriend was with me, and he got a shot of the Milky Way.
Nice. Yes. Yes.
Maureen, you should have said that because I'm going to get the North Haven group. I'm going to talk Duck into it. I'm going
We're-
to talk Robert. And
We're coming up to your place in
We're
Vermont.
coming up there, yes.
It would be a fun little getaway.
Now, you know what? A few years back, myself and some photo friends of mine, we went to Monhegan Island for the
Oh.
week. Oh, beautiful, beautiful place.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
yeah, and you're not going to get a lot of light pollution out
not
there.
at all. It was great. You could literally see the Milky Way with your naked eye. It
Well,
was
you can
that
if-
clear.
Well, if the conditions are right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was awesome.
yeah, that's amazing.
Are you in the area where is it 2014? I know it's going to hit Buffalo. There's going to be an eclipse. Is it going to hit your area too?
I'm not,
I know we're past 2014. I think it's I can't oh God, I can't remember.
2024, maybe? Is that what you're
Maybe
thinking?
2024 or 25. I will find out for the next because a friend of mine is really into this, and he's going to Rochester, and he went to the eclipse in 2017. I'll find out.
yeah, does he do astrophotography?
He's not really a photographer. He's more of a hobbyist. He's not a photographer.
Oh, see,
He's a radio engineer, and he's
Ah.
into science.
sure,
Oh,
sure.
okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Well,
Well, I really enjoyed this. Thank you very much.
thank you for joining us. Spread the word. Let your friends know. And you're going to find out that photography is, very enjoyable, but there are going to be times where you're just going to be by yourself with the camera.
Yep.
And it's a rather solitary hobby at times. And that's when you really start to learn. But you also want to get out there and shoot with friends,
Right.
and at that point you kind of have to move with the group. So,
Yeah.
but it's all part of the learning experience.
Exactly.
So awesome.
I'm in. Yeah. All right.
Well,
Thank
thank you
you.
for joining us. It's the first 3 Mondays of the month. So next week we are not we're not getting together.
Okay.
And we'll see you hopefully in December.
Okay.
Awesome.
Great.
Well, thank you for joining me.
November? No, you meant to say.
Oh, November. Yes, November. That's right. We're in October. I'm trying to fast forward it to funny. Okay. All right.
Hey, Doug, thank you.
My pleasure. Anybody else got any last minute questions? Because I know I kind of hogged today's session. No questions? You're good?
Thank you, Doug.
All
Thank you very
righty.
much.
You're quite welcome. All right, guys. Thank you once again for joining me, and we will see you in 2 weeks.
Yes.
Good night.
All right.
Okay.
Take care.
For watching Learning Photography with Duck. Brought to you in association with Milford Photo, your local full-service camera store. Located in downtown Milford, Connecticut, Milford Photo offers you a personalized shopping experience. From the latest camera gear to printing and framing services. And, of course, educational workshops to teach you the finer aspects of photography. Don't forget to tell them Duck sent you.